everybody, and welcome to the next round in the British Touring Car 2023 Championship with myself and Ben. Say hello.
Hello.
Today we're going to be covering the Brands Hatch Indy round, also known as rounds 4 to 6. And fair to say, it was a fairly interesting affair. With rather than the rain coming down on the Sunday, it came down on the Saturday, with Sunday having dry running, and yeah, fair to say we had a fair bit, didn't we, Ben?
Yeah, basically the opposite of Donington.
Yeah, it was, well, opposite on the days. We actually saw the debut of one of the new support series as well, the Legends Car Championships, which I thought was a great addition.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of good racing in it, and it seemed like a lot of them quite sideways. They sound good. They look really interesting, and yeah, I enjoyed watching that.
Apparently, from what I remember hearing over the commentary for one of them races, it's like there were Yamaha 2000cc engines or something.
Engine. Yeah, they're a motorbike engine on like a built chassis and sort of thing. So they sound like really interesting. Basically, just sound like you said, like a motorbike.
Yeah, they do sound good. If you haven't seen them, by the way, highly recommend going watching the races on YouTube or wherever you can get your hands on. If you're in the UK, you can get them on ITVX. Would highly recommend watching them. They were fantastic to watch on both days. Anyway, for why we're actually here, we are here for the British Touring Cars as well. We'll go into qualifying first and foremost. So qualifying was a messy affair as it was very wet, which meant that there was a lot of drying. Trying to dry the track as much as possible from the drivers. This also meant that people were going off left, right and centre. We had several red flags, the first of which was called by Nick Halstead going off. This was swiftly followed by Rory Butcher going off as well. However, he could rejoin as he wasn't too far off the track, and it also meant that he managed to keep his lap time, unlike Nick Halstead. With 19 minutes to go, we saw Nick Hamilton stopped at the side of the track. A few seconds later, Adam Morgan spun and smashed straight into him, which brought out the second red flag. We had a third red flag brought out again. A third red flag brought out due to Will Powell going off at the top of Graham Hill Bend, smashing straight into the tyre barrier. Sam Osborne had a huge accident, which smashed the rear of his car into the tyre wall into the final corner. Luckily, this didn't bring out another red flag, so it wasn't too bad. This also saw, for the second race meeting in a row, we saw the top 10 shootout. So for those that don't know, you have the main qualifying and then the top 10 shootout afterwards. And when it got underway, the cars obviously all battled it out as per usual. With Dan Camish coming out on top, he made it a late charge to take pole. Literally, I think is the very last lap, he came up and managed to snag it by over 2.5 tenths of a second to take pole for Napa Racing, with the BMWs of Turkington and Hill behind him. So Dan Camish took pole with a 54.297, which is quite impressive considering he gets 1 second of hybrid. And apparently, for what we've seen in the wet, it kind of narrows it out or balances it out, which is interesting and something to keep in note for further meetings. Supposedly, anyway. Turkington was, like I said, just a little over 2.5 tenths back, and Hill was in third, albeit 6 thousandths of a second behind him. Moving into race 1, though, we saw a great start by Turkington to take the lead from the very start, with Sutton going up to second ahead of Hill and Camish on the first lap. However, disaster struck further back, as when we got to the end of the first lap, we saw 4 cars get wiped out, as Stephen Jelly, Adam Morgan, Andrew Watson and Dan Rowbottom all were collected and brought out the red flag. There was a very close incident as well with Nick Hamilton and Nick Halstead, I believe, who Hamilton saw the accident happen in front of him. He slowed down enough, managed to avoid it. Nick Halstead kept his foot planted and flew past him. It was very close and was lucky there wasn't another serious accident, really. All things considered, it was good avoiding action, but very serious as well. This obviously caused a red flag and a massive delay. When we got back underway with the second start, or the restart, the same situation happened with Dan Camish, who dropped down to 4th this time. Sutton wasn't giving up as he put pressure on Hill and took him at the start of the second lap, with Camish diving back up the inside of Hill to retake 3rd place. So even though Turkington and Hill got a great start and Camish dropped down, yeah, fair to say there was still a bit of lap sorting out as the race went on. Lap 3 saw Moffat, Pearson, Butel and Osborne all go head-to-head for 13th place. Moffat got ahead of Pearson with Butel also trying the same. However, Pearson managed to retake the position with Osborne getting past him to take 15th place. We saw further back, we saw Nick Hamilton managing to get past Jade Edwards for 19th place on lap 5. Ingram and Butcher had a tasty scrap for 5th, with Ingram trying to take the position on lap 8 and Butcher retaking the position less than a few corners later, which was really good to see. Lap 12 saw Ricky Collard and Dan Lloyd go head-to-head over 9th place, with Collard coming out on top in his Toyota. On lap 16, we saw the battle between Ingram and Butcher resume once again, with Ingram getting through to take 5th place properly. One lap later, and it was Thompson versus Butcher, with Thompson getting by, regardless of how much Butcher defended the position, to take 6th place. At the front, though, it was Colin Turkington who defended the lead, and despite what the Fords of Sutton and Camish threw at him, he held on to take his 64th BTCC win and the first win of the day. So your race 1 results, Colin Turkington was your race winner, followed by Ash Sutton in 2nd, who also took the fastest lap. Dan Camish in 3rd, ahead of Jake Hill in 4th, Tom Ingram 5th, Bobby Thompson 6th, ahead of Rory Butcher in 7th, Josh Cook in 8th, Ricky Collard in 9th, and Dan Lloyd rounding out the top 10. Over to you for race 2, Ben.
Yeah, so for race 2, before we'd even had any action of the race, on the warm-up lap, we saw Jack Butel, just as he left the pits, had a problem and he managed to retreat behind a barrier that was just on the end of the pit exit. So his car was out the way, perfectly fine, everything can carry on as normal. And then, not far back, you could see, as the cars are going around, Nick Halstead's car looks like it's waiting on the end of the pit lane, which is quite bizarre. Turned out this was a problem with his fire extinguisher, which was quite obviously a bit of a safety risk. So once this was fixed, they managed to quickly get him out as the warm-up lap's still going ahead, so he caught back up midway around the track and he started basically on the end of the grid because he had to at that point. So yeah, at this point now we get to the start. At the start we had Turkington and Hill getting a really good start, and then Camish gets past, I think by Hill and possibly Ingram and everything. It seems like he's just got swamped. Sutton managed to somehow just keep on to Turkington, and then he managed to just go for it after that and sort of get a bit of a draft off him. Takes him going into the hairpin just after the end of the hill, which is really good to see. And then you see that Hill and Ingram are really not far behind him. Ingram manages to get straight past Hill and slots in behind Turkington, and then 2 corners later, they get past, and Camish manages to get back up and start fighting with Hill going down the main straight. He manages to get past him on the first corner and manages to hold the place. So Camish has basically managed to get back up there. It's nice to see, there's loads of battles going on. We've only just literally got to the end of lap 1. So for lap 2, you notice that Jack Butel's car gets pushed from where it was just straight backwards and into the pits. Out of the way now and completely gone. On lap 3, you see Osborne gets past Gamble as Tom and Thompson, as they're battling, get a great overtake, just goes straight past both. And it just looks like both, because they were battling with each other, didn't even notice him, just went straight past them both. He moves straight up to 9th. Lap 6, you see Jade Edwards, that she got a 5-second penalty for being out position on the starting grid. On lap 7, Chilton and Pearson managed to get past Moffat, and they're both then having a nice inter-team battle with each other as well while they're going around. On lap 10, Adam Morgan has managed to get all the way up to 19th from being at the back of the grid near enough, so he's slowly curving his way through. Lap 11, Chilton sends it straight past Dan Lloyd into the first corner with a really good pass. He's just flying past him. Pearson manages to stick on the back of him and he follows through. Rowbottom also starts to catch up at this point and he starts his battle with Lloyd. On lap 15, Hill gets past Camish after pressuring for 2 laps before this, goes up straight on the inside on the run up to the hairpin, just easily gets past him. On lap 23, Osborne gets past Cook with a great overtake going into the final corner. It's nice to see he's finally got past him. And on the last lap, Sutton wins the race and he starts catching up to Nick Alstead on the last lap. Luckily, this doesn't interfere with anything. He manages to get the win. And then Cook also gets past Gamble and Collard and Osborne after Osborne had clipped Collard. It caused them all to sort of go about everywhere, and Cook managed to get straight past all of them. So we have the end of the race. The winner is Ash Sutton, who also had the fastest lap. Second is Ingram. Third is Turkington. Fourth is Hill. Fifth is Camish. Sixth is Butcher. Seventh is Cook. Eighth is Osborne. Ninth is Gamble. And in 10th is Collard. Over to you for race 3, Brad.
Thanks, Ben. So the last race, as per usual, is always action-packed because we have the reverse grid. So Bobby Thompson on pole, and as it was, full enough, similar 12 months ago. Same race meeting. He does really well at Brands Hatch Indy, it would seem, in that Cupra. But this race was action-packed from the very get-go. Ricky Collard took the lead as soon as the lights went out. And in the midfield, we saw a charge by Ash Sutton as well as various others due to the significant advantage of the option tyre, which was making its debut. Sutton managed to get up to 4th place from 11th after just one lap, and then it was a case of hunting down the others ahead to take the lead. This is something we don't see from the person who is the reverse grid picker that often, unless they've got the car dialed in with the biggest disadvantage in mind. I mean, take 2021 with the Infinity of Sutton, for example. Sam Osborne, though, didn't have a great time in the third race. He went wide and dropped a few places. However, he did manage to retake one of the places to keep in 5th place. On lap 3, we saw Sutton try and overtake Butcher with a move that seemed very familiar to that of Anthony Reid back in 1998. However, despite the effort, Butcher did hold on to the position, albeit for a few corners before Sutton finally made his move and got past him. Andrew Watson and Jade Edwards had hit trouble pretty early on. However, they weren't the only ones to suffer problems this race. Josh Cook put a feisty move on Sam Osborne on lap 5, which put him on the grass and caused Osborne to drop a lot of places. Meanwhile, up at the front, Sutton managed to get past Thompson for 2nd. We then saw Dan Lloyd and Tom Chilton going head-to-head, with Lloyd losing out not only to Chilton, but also to Dan Rowbottom, who demoted him to 14th. Further up the field, though, Jake Hill put a smooth move on Josh Cook to move up into 6th place. Both the Toyotas of George Gamble and Rory Butcher went head-to-head, but this also saw Hill to try his luck and try and overtake one of them. And bear in mind, this all happened before we hit half distance. Hill managed to get past Gamble for 5th, immediately put pressure on Butcher for 4th. Lap 13, he managed to do it. It was disaster for Toyota as Gamble went wide at the drop down and dropped down the order. We then saw Stephen Jelly's rear tyre delaminate. Josh Cook also went off and dropped places, which dropped into 12th. Another Toyota, another disaster, with Rory Butcher's engine expiring. However, the driver didn't stop there, as Jake Hill's rear tyre delaminated and dropped him out of the points. On lap 18, we saw Ronan Pearson get past Sam Osborne for 13th, with Doble, Patson and Butel also fighting for the position. However, lap 22 saw the race result change in a big way, as a 10-second penalty was given to the race leader, who at the time was Ricky Collard, for extending track limits. However, this didn't stop Sutton from trying to get the lead, as on lap 23 of 24, Sutton tried to take him and Collard tried everything to defend his position, including putting him onto the grass. This didn't stop a last lap battle between the two, as Collard wanted to win despite the penalty. And despite everything that Sutton tried, he couldn't get past him, but that didn't matter, as in the end it was Ash Sutton who won, with Bobby Thompson and Tom Ingram rounding out the podium. So your race 3 results with the penalty applied was Ash Sutton was your race winner, also taking the fastest lap. Bobby Thompson was 2nd ahead of Tom Ingram in 3rd. Then we had Dan Camish in 4th, Colin Turkington in 5th, Adam Morgan in 6th ahead of Tom Chilton in 7th, then Ricky Collard in 8th after the penalty was applied, Dan Rowbottom in 9th and Josh Cook in 10th. To move on to the driver's standings, it now sees a 5-point lead for Dan Camish, who sits on 88 points of Tom Ingram on 83. With the race weekend that Ash Sutton had, he jumped up to 3rd with 78 points, ahead of Colin Turkington on 70 in 4th, Jake Hill with 58 points back in 5th, 10 ahead of Bobby Thompson in 6th, who was on 48. Then we have a close battle between Tom Chilton, Josh Cook, Adam Morgan, and Ricky Collard for the last 4 positions. So, Ben, in terms of winners from the weekend, who would be your pick?
Even though like he got the penalty, Collard was one of mine just because I thought it was like really good up until a point where obviously the penalty happened. He'd had a really good race for race 3 and looked like he was going to take the win. And yeah, these things happen and they happen the way they do, and people can decide in one way or another what they think of it. But I think for me, it sort of like left that race as being like it was annoying, but it wasn't the end of the world because he still made it into top 10 even with that penalty, which I thought was great. Hamish has done really well just to keep the points where he's at for this weekend. And then like Bobby Thompson's done really well. Like you said, it seems like this is sort of his track. So yeah, they were the ones for me.
I mean, for me, it's obviously going to be Ash Sutton, not just because I support him, but 2 wins, 3 fastest laps in the 2nd place to really put himself in the title fight. Not going to lie, that's about as good as a weekend as you're ever going to see, really. I mean, unless you win all 3 races with fastest laps and everything. But unbelievable job, really, to get that. I mean, that car's a rocket. I'm not just saying that, not to take anything away from Ricky Collard in the last race. I think Ricky Collard did earn that win, but at the same time, as the drivers have all said, you know, it's black and white with track limits, so who knows. Definitely got to give a big mention to Bobby Thompson. You know, he managed to get 2nd in race 3. You know, I think he won more than 1 trophy because obviously he's an independent winner as well. So, yeah, pretty damn good weekend for him too. And like I said, ironic considering it was this same race meeting last year that he did well on. So it seems like Bobby Thompson and Brands Hatch Indy are 2 things that are meant to go hand in hand. I'm actually going to give a big mention here. In terms of winners from the weekend, this probably is less of a winner but more of an interesting point. But I want to give a big mention to BMW because they managed to repair 2 cars with quite a bit of damage. Adam Morgan on the Saturday and Stephen Jelly after that race 1 incident on Sunday. And the fact that they managed to get them both back on the grid for the races was a great effort. So definitely hats off to BMW for doing that. And on that note, we're going to hand this over to you guys. What did you make of this weekend's racing? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let us know down in the comment section. Most importantly, what did you think about the penalty for Ricky Collard? Was it a penalty that he shouldn't have had? Was it fair? Was it not fair? Again, let us know. And on that note, we will see you guys in about a fortnight's time for the next race weekend, which is going to be at Snetterton, which is held a bit earlier in the season than usual. But yeah, on that note, thank you very much for watching. Have yourselves a great day and take care. Ta-ra.
Bye.